I hope that when I ask that question, you're saying to yourself, I slept pretty good, you know? And here are the reasons why I think I slept good. I think a lot of people think sleep is a given, right? It's just something that'll happen. And if it doesn't happen, something's broken and it'll just be fixed. Um, Sleep is a practice. Life is a practice. When you interact with sleep, you're interacting with something that is, highly connected to every thought you have, how often you're moving your body, um, how much you love in a day. Your sleep is a reflection of that. It's not just a thing. It's like a switch. I think that's hard for people to get to. It was hard for me to get to. It 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 didn't. It seemed like something that I was either. It was either a gift or a curse, right? I would have the gift of sleep, and then that would be it, or I wouldn't have the gift of sleep, and I'd be screwed. It was never seen as a barometer for wellness, I guess. Um, but anyway, today's the 80th stanza. It's arguably my favorite, and it's I think the stanza that offers the most insight into where we are as a culture in regards to our understanding of where we fit in and how we belong and what's the meaning behind all this. Like what's the point of all this? And I know in America the point of all this was this kind of growth towards an ever increasingly more perfect union, and that each step along the way was just this constant progress. And the progress was, just a matter of just keeping it going, right? And then there would be progress. And so because that was there was this sense that we were moving in the right direction. And what I would say to that is that the notion of a right direction is in and of itself the problem. And I'm going to go onto the board to break that down a little bit more. But here's the stanza, right? So this is the 80th stanza of The Art of Peace. The 80th stanza of The Art of Peace says, one should be prepared to receive 99% of an enemy's attack and stare death right in the face in order to illumine the path. What? What? 99% stare death in the face in order to illumine the path? I got to do what now? That doesn't, let reread that. That can't be right. Okay. So let's go back over some basics. Okay. So what I described a minute ago about progress. So, you've got 1776, and it's always kind of perceived as this. Okay? So this is where we're headed, right? We're headed to this ideal. Okay? And I guess, for me, it was where I fit on the ideal. So I fit, I always thought that my space was protector. And I know some people's space was, their job or sports or whatever. But inside this is, now and the future. Inside this is the American dream. Inside this is where everyone fits. Inside this is kind of an order of things, right? Well, the basic problem with this is that it kind of positions life itself as kind of linear, that everything just kind of happens in this kind of orderly fashion. And if you do it right, you'll get to this ideal. Now, the way we've situated all this is the only way we really can, and that's with the mind. Because the mind deals with past. The mind deals with past, future. Okay? So when it comes to the American mind, what you can imagine about the American mind is that it's situated like this. It's a line. It's just a steady progress. I mean, you've heard things about the end of history, shit like that. When Obama was elected for 8 years, there was this notion that he represented the end of history, meaning that we had achieved the goal of a more perfect union. We were moving in this direction towards ever greater connectivity and joy and all this other kind of stuff. But that really wasn't the case. And it wasn't the case for, it was the case for some people, but it wasn't the case for all people. And so now we're in a space where there's just this sense that all that is no longer grounded, right? And by that I mean that this line, this path from here to the ideal doesn't seem real anymore. It doesn't seem like it fits. And just like with sleep, right? Just like with sleep, this kind of clear path that has clarity around it, that is grounded, that just kind of shows up and makes its way forward. It just doesn't fit anymore. And so what are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to manage that? Well, one of the things that you've got to understand is that the experience, the USA, forget USA for a second, and let's just talk about the human. The human experience is far more that than it is this. So the human experience is far more of a circle than it is a straight line. And so when you interact with the human experience as a circle, as opposed to a straight line, nothing is a given, right? Nothing shows up as this is just what's going to happen to get here, to get here, to get here. That's no longer the issue. So when the human experience is like this, it's more about how do you interact. You see this here. How do you interact than it is to get to this ideal, right? So this is getting to an ideal. This is interact, okay? Now, what the ideal is up here is that you'll get to the kind of the best, right? This is it, right? This is just the yay. Life is perfect. I have this house. I have these 2.5 kids. I got a dog. I got a white picket fence. I'm happy now. That's this basic idea. Well, in the human experience, it doesn't work that way. In the human experience, there's all kinds of things going on, and there's all kinds of disruptions going on. And so what happens inside the human experience is you get the kind of the whole awareness. That's the You can kind of do the, right? So there's that. And there's that. There's like the yin and the yang, the good and the bad, all of that kind of stuff. Well, today's stanza is not about getting to this perfect place in the future. Like, yes, I'm here. Life is good. Today's stanza is recognizing that the real strength, the real power, the real wonders of life actually come from the biggest challenges, right? The biggest challenges that you face, the ones that really knock you on your butt, are the challenges that show you that I think I know Jung, who was a famous psychologist, I'm not sure, psychologist, right? Yeah, sociology maybe. Jung. Anyway, Jung. I know this. I know that Jung used to say this kind of stuff because Jordan Peterson used to say this kind of stuff, and that is the greatest growth. The things that will show you the most about yourself and give you the greatest empowerment are inside your shadows, or are inside conflict, or the treasure is where the treasure lies where you least want to look. And Peterson used to use a lot of story, or he would describe a lot of ancient myth as a way to articulate that. And he would talk a lot about dragons, and he would talk about famous stories about how the warrior goes into the hero's journey. That's another bit of language around this, and they would find their heart, they would find their courage. And the basic idea behind these stories, right? And this kind of fits the narrative of, it's a kind of a straight line. The basic idea of these stories is that once you've achieved your hero's journey, you come back and there's where the treasure is, right? The treasure is underneath the dragon. You slay the dragon. And that's part of what I'm saying. So there's relevance there. But what really happens is that the dragon just shows you what you're capable of. You slay the dragon, it shows you what you're capable of. You get the treasure, but the treasure isn't this end state. This end state of, I've got it, I'm here, now life is better. The treasure is a level of awareness. And what that means is, instead of a place to get to, it's a awareness to believe in. Okay? And what happens when you start to believe in your awareness? So you believe that what you're capable of perceiving within yourself and externally will show you things that you never would have seen otherwise. And that with each kind of new awareness, that there will be increased kind of ability, not increased wealth or happiness or pleasure, but increased ability. And with increased ability will come increased participation with the need for that ability to shine forth. And as that ability starts to shine forth, you start to see that your true power, the power that lasts, the power that's transformational, the power that not only transforms you, but also the world around you, that the true power is within you. It's at your heart. And it's your capacity for taking the full brunt of the heat, taking the fullest hit preparing to meet 99% of the enemy's attack to find the smooth path forward. And what that does is it shows you that regardless of what happens in your life, whether it goes just straight line, everything goes great, American dream, or that it's surrounded by challenge, you have the strength within you to meet it, and not only meet it, but meet it in ways that are transformational. And so that's what this stanza means. That's what this stanza, how appropriately timed right before Tuesday, that's what it means. And so I know a lot of people are moving into this election day, right? So Tuesday, with a lot of dread and a lot of worry and a lot of fear. And it's ungrounded, it's strange, it's very different than anything we've ever experienced before. But just know that your strength really starts to show up inside the heat. And when the heat comes, when the dread comes, or when the fear comes, instead of distracting yourself, instead of medicating yourself with some technique or some concoction or some pattern that you're used to, instead of doing that, let the heat come and use it in your practice. Feel your feet. The heat becomes first bell. It's showing up here. I feel it. It's this. It's spiky. It's et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then go through the body: feet, tailbone, belly button, heart, throat, top of the head, and then start to engage with your breath. You can start to shift it, and it may not shift by much. It could just be enough to get to your breath, which is fine. That's okay. Once you get to the breath, then go into your gratitude and compassion. Because what you've got to do, you cannot fail to do this. You have to keep getting to gratitude and compassion. You have to. If you don't get to gratitude and compassion, you're going to rot. I'm not kidding. You will rot. If your heart is not maintained and it starts to get these big holes in it, and you start to lose your connection to gratitude and compassion, it'll rot. And a rotten heart is a heart that blames, that revels in other people's pain, that wants to see others suffer, a rotten heart becomes the problem. So you don't want to become the problem. You want to find a way to interact with the problems without becoming them. And the way you do that is by going right at it. When the heat comes, let it be bell 1. Get into the body on bell 2. And then 3, interact with the breathing. The breathing will give you some space, right? So if you've ever felt like condensed, right, and take that deep breath, doesn't necessarily fix it, but it gives you some space, right? So what you need to do is you need to get some space and then boom, put some compassion and gratitude in there. You keep doing that, you'll make it through. It's not going to be easy, but you'll make it through. What happens is you don't do that, you fall off. And when you fall off, you don't fall off into nothing, right? I haven't even thought about this. When you fall off, you don't fall off into nothing. You fall off into a place where malevolence is. You create goodwill. Goodwill is something that's created. The absence of goodwill is not nothing. The absence of goodwill is the opposite of goodwill. It is the opposite. You have to account for malevolence. You have to. You cannot just think, oh, it's no big deal. You can become it. And when you become it, you want to see other people suffer. You want to blame. You want others to feel the pain that you felt. And that is the darkness. That's darkness. And the reason why it's darkness is because what starts to happen is the only time you start to feel good is when others are diminished. And that's not good. It's not good. And I don't care about the society. I'm saying it's not good for you. It's not good for you because it just starts to weaken you. And you become weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. What happens to someone who follows the path is they become stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, right? Every single time you face the heat and find your heart, you get stronger. Every single time you face the heat and distract yourself, you get to zero, which is, it's not bad, but you're not getting stronger. And every time you face the heat and you succumb to it, you get weaker. So you have the choice. You have options here. And what's nice is you've got training. So let's do that training. And I want you to think about it. This is not as like extra credit, like, oh, I study mindfulness because it's cool, No, this is fundamental. This is like at the root, right? You need to understand this stuff, and now more than ever. So let's get to it. All right. So first things first, get your cues, right? Follow your cues to comfort. What makes you more comfortable? Put that there. What makes you more comfortable? Once you've established what makes you more comfortable, we'll begin. Bell one. Look in your mind for dread. Look in your mind for anxiety. Look in your mind for fear. Let it, whatever is darkest for you, let it to the surface and see if you can feel it in your body. See if you can feel it with your senses. See if you can feel it as a present moment experience. Actually use the heat to tame your mind. You have to almost be curious about the heat itself to let it be physical, because so much of the heat is mental. So much of the heat is anticipatory. And so if you can study what the anticipation feels like, you can ground the heat in the moment. Now, second bell takes us through the body. So you've got to kind of push the heat out of the way by focusing on the present moment at your points. So focus on what's beneath you. If the heat's strong, it's going to be coming at you, right? So it's going to keep coming at you. Let it come, study what it feels like, and then push through with your awareness to get to the ground. Get to ground. Feel your toes if you need to move them. Notice fabric, notice cushion, notice hardness. Notice where your body's touching something. Notice ground. Next, notice the pelvis. So if there's a lot of heat, shift, move around on the pelvis. Feel the pelvis move. Use that as a cue. It's almost like a game of ping pong, right? So the heat comes, you think about it, you go to the awareness. Heat comes, think about it, go to the awareness. So it's like boom, boom, boom. This is hard. It's hard work to move through the heat. It's tough. It's hard. Get through it. Get to the core. Now, chances are, if you're in core, there's a lot of musculature there. There's a lot of contraction there. You can focus on that, notice that. You can practice pulling the core in, contracting it even tighter, and then letting it go. All things to disrupt the pattern of the heat. You're breaking it down. This is like a jabs. These are jabs, right? If you're a boxer, you're breaking the heat down. You're saying, all right, heat, you can be there, but I'm going to the core. Get to the core. Move the core. Feel the core. Now get to heart space. Move heart space. Move shoulder blades. Feel that movement. Feel it. It's work. It is work to get through the heat. You can't just let the heat lie. You've got to confront it. There's no other way to do it. And you confront it with your presence, right? You don't confront it by trying to get rid of it. Don't do that. Don't try to get rid of it. You have to go at it. You got to invite it in. Go at it. It cannot handle your awareness. It dies every single time your awareness drives into it. You got to go at it. So go at it, heart space. Go at it, throat. Go at top of the head. Now, be a little bit more complex in this moment by getting taller by a millimeter. The act of getting taller by a millimeter is a complex act. It's not something you typically do, but it's something that the body can do. And it's a refinement. It's a precision that requires the concentration of the mind. So you can disrupt the heat by getting taller by a millimeter, and now start to influence the musculature of the face. Soften the eyes. Soften the nose, the cheeks, the tongue, the jaw. Soften the face. Look, your face connects to the social vagus nerve, so your social central nervous system, your social nervous system. And so you'll see it in kids, you'll notice this in yourself, but most people's faces really show what's going on inside. Now, by kind of dropping all facial expression and getting that soft, okay, you neutralize that nervous system, right? There's multiple nervous systems inside yourself. You neutralize that. Now, use it to your advantage. Give yourself a little smile. Like a little smile, like the kind of smile that, like, you would see on a boxer, right, or a MMA fighter, where they see the weakness and they know where it is, right? They know how to attack. So like a little smile, not like a big crazy smile, but like a little smile, like, I know something that you don't know, or like a little smile at the heat, like, I've never turned to stare you in the face yet. Just a little smile, like a little smile. You got this. Like, okay. All right. Just give it a little bit of a smile. Nothing big, just enough to be like, all right, I'm feeling this. Now we'll go third bell. And breath. Just go big breath right away. Now, heat, change time, right? So one of the things that's nice about changing time and counting is if you're breathing and counting at the exact same rate, it's very hard for your mind to go somewhere else. It's very hard for your mind to go somewhere else while you're counting and breathing at the same time. You're fully present here. Now, you might experience the heat like ramming in, trying to get your attention. But if you can stay connected to the count, the heat will start to diminish. It can't do it. Your system has to be involved with either pushing the heat away or succumbing to the heat in order for the heat to be alive. So when you confront the heat and then let it in, invite it in, and then work with it, it fucks it all up. Like the heat just can't. It's a pattern that the heat just can't contend with. It's like you trump the heat, right? So Trump is a pattern that we all just can't contend with, right? So you've got to find a way to kind of disrupt it and then cultivate the goodwill that's always within it. And I'm not talking the goodwill within Trump. I'm talking about the goodwill that's within you. The heat is more like Trump. And I'm not saying that it's bad. Like, do not think that it is bad. It is a disruptor. And if you don't interact with it in the way I'm telling you, it will continue to disrupt and dominate until you become the disruptor. So 478, 478. Let's do that 3 times and use your count and your breathing, the feeling of your breath, to really zoom in and be focused on the present moment. Okay? 4 count in, 7 count hold, 8 count out. 3 times on your own. All right. Just sit for a second. Just notice what happens inside the body as you kind of complete your practice and you're just sitting with it. The heat might be a little bit less intrusive, might not, but you might have created a little bit of space. Remember, the heat becomes your nervous system, okay? And the more you think about it, the more your nervous system responds to the heat. Now, if you interact with the heat with your nervous system, as opposed to the heat becoming your nervous system, you can start influencing the heat, and the nervous system starts to shift. It shifts from fight or flight, threat, to relaxation, parasympathetic. It shifts, right? So you're shifting gears. So one more kind of technique, and this is, I call these, I don't know what to call this. I'm thinking 8 on 8. I don't know, but what I do is I hold at the top and I hold at the bottom, and I participate with the hold. So I'll breathe in deep. I'll hold my breath here, and I'll wait until that breath hold starts to become uncomfortable, and then I'll exhale all the way down, and I'll hold at the bottom, and I'll wait until it starts to become uncomfortable, and then I'll inhale back up to the top. I'll wait for it to become uncomfortable, holding again, then I'll exhale down to the bottom. And I'll do that, I'll do that a little bit, because what that does for me is it gives me that an opportunity to interact with triggered heat. So your breath being held is going to show up in your body as a kind of a growing kind of triggeredness of, this is a problem. You need to breathe out, or this is a problem, or you need to breathe in. And so when I feel that, I get to study a kind of an internal signal that I've often found kind of directly correlates to the heat, or the sharpness that the heat can come with sometimes. And often what the heat kind of shows up as inside, and then when I let it out in an unskillful way, and or when I'm triggered, this is kind of where the trigger shows up, what it feels like. So, so hopefully that gives you a sense of curiosity. But what I'll do is I'll breathe in, hold, I'm waiting for my body to tell me it's time to breathe out. There it is. Now exhale. Now hold here too. Waiting for my body to tell me to breathe in. You can begin and do about 3 or 4 rounds if you like. So, what you'll have created in your body by messing with your breath and shifting your technique and just creating space away from the patterns of thinking, away from the patterns of the heat, away from the linearness. Now's an opening to practice gratitude and compassion. So, what are you grateful for? Even inside of all the heat, there's gratitude to be found. If you're alive, there's gratitude to be found. Now, if this is a religious place for you, if this is a spiritual place for you that involves, divine language or sacred language or particular language, this is the place to use it. Prayer, mantra, meditation, this is the time to do it. There's no structure here other than you've opened space. You've opened space here. So what are you going to put in that space? It's got to be goodwill oriented. Gratitude first is an easy one. You can be grateful about the simplest things. And if you want to go to the next step is taking that goodwill that you cultivated within and giving it away. See what happens, the more you give away your honor, the more you give away your goodwill, the more you get. And you don't get it from someone, you get it by giving. That's the ultimate irony of all this. It's like the more I give away, the more I have. Yes, that's how compassion works. That's our greatest power. That's what all the great teachers and religions have all been trying to tell us. And it's the truth. There is no way around it. And the reason it's the truth is because it's what has lasted. It's the basic message that has lasted since the beginning. And it's arguably what the creator did to create us. So this is the space for you to do that. And when you're finished doing that, you take your 2 breaths and you finish the practice in a conscious, focused way. So yeah, that's the practice, okay? It can be applied anytime. It can be applied like this in the morning, and I really encourage you to sit with me every morning on every weekday. I really, really encourage that. It's absolutely important to practice this when things are less volatile because it's easier. It's why you It's why you train with, simunitions, not live rounds, because it's easier, right? You don't have to go full in. It's why in football you train without pads sometimes because it's easier. You get the basics and you can kind of ingrain the basics. So when it's game time, you're good to go. You're ready to do it. So train in the morning. And if you have any questions, ask. Make this thing called mindfulness a priority. It's not a detraction from anything you already do. It complements what you already do by helping you learn how to pay attention. Paying attention is the master variable. So, with that, we end I think this is the 15th week. We're in the 80s, so there's 34 more stanzas. Next week, we have the beginning of the presidential election. Who knows if there'll also be the end on that day. But we're also going into just a whole lot of challenge. Going into a whole lot of challenge. The election's going to be challenging. The pandemic's going to be challenging. The challenge of the pandemic and any kind of uncertainty around the election will be challenging. Stress is going to go up. So don't wait. Don't wait to start giving this the attention that you've been wanting to give it. Right? If you're flirting with the practice, if you're interacting with my streams on and off, commit to it. Start to do the work. It's going to pay off. It doesn't look like things are just going to automatically all of a sudden just get easier. That straight line, right? That straight line. Once we get here, everything will be fine. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. So I'll be here, so join me. All right. Have a good weekend. Yes. Thank you to everybody that watched today. And we'll see you on Monday. Later, Down.